Hello friends, today we are going to read The Terrible Two, pages 206 to the end. Ready? Let's begin.
Chapter 37. Miles went over to Niles' house for a celebratory breakfast. Cereal and toast with 3 kinds of jam and scrambled eggs with onions, all washed down with a big glass of milk. It was delicious. But the prank wasn't quite finished. At about 10:30, Miles and Niles returned to school. They found Barkin behind the school, where he'd gone with his son after the students had left that morning. For a while, Josh had tried to push a cow out the rear exit. "It won't go down the steps, Dad." "Of course she won't," Principal Barkin had said. "Haven't you even read the booklet? You're not helping. Go home." He called his wife to pick Josh up and spent the next couple of hours sitting. "Niles, am I glad to see you?" said Principal Barkin when he saw the pair approach. "Miles, I am not glad to see you. Unless you're here because Niles can prove that you put these cows in the school, and he's here to turn you in." "I didn't do it," Miles said. "That's what you always say," said Principal Barkin. "You should put that on a t-shirt, and then I will wear a t-shirt that says, 'Yes, you did.'" "Principal Barkin," said Niles. "Miles couldn't have done it." Barkin stared at his school helper. "Why not?" "Because Miles spent the night at my house." "On a school night?" "We were studying for Miss Shandy's test," Niles said. "Test," Principal Barkin exhaled faintly. "School cancelled on a test day." "And election day," Niles said. "We were supposed to vote for class president." Principal Barkin's gaze went fuzzy. "It looks like the cows are still here," said Miles. "Of course they are," said Principal Barkin. "They can't go down steps. Doesn't anyone read the booklet?" "Hey, maybe you should call your brother," said Niles. "Isn't he a farmer?" "I can't. They're all branded B. They're his cows." "Oh," said Niles. "So then, shouldn't you tell him?" No. Bob has a big mouth, and you boys wouldn't understand. Thanks for coming, but I'm afraid you can't be of much help, Niles. And Miles, you can be of even less help." "Actually," said Niles, "we think we figured out who did this. We think we know who did all the pranks." Barkin snapped upright. "You do?" "Yeah," said Miles. We think it was Josh," said Niles. "Josh who?" said Principal Barkin. "Josh Barkin," said Miles. "Josh, my son Barkin?" said Principal Barkin. "Yes," said Niles. "That's insane," said Principal Barkin. "Is it?" said Niles. "Think about it. He would have access to your car keys, and the keys to the school, and even the locker combinations. Maybe Josh is the one who framed Miles with that pie catapult. I mean, we know Josh doesn't like Miles." "Well, nobody likes Miles. He's a prankster." "But what if he's not?" Barkin hesitated. "But no, Josh couldn't have. He was at Cody Bertyler's Nature Scout Outdoor Jamboree last night." "On a school night?" Niles said. "Well, you boys understand," said Barkin. "It was Cody Bertyler." Miles smiled. "Principal Barkin," Miles said, "Cody Bertyler doesn't even exist." "Now that is insane." "That is insane," said Niles. "We went to his birthday party. I bought that guy a present." "I met some kids from St. Perpetua the other week," Miles said. "They'd never heard of him." "But then, who'd I give a present to?" Niles asked. "Who'd we all give presents to? Who was wearing that football helmet? Unless... I mean, Josh was basically the only kid who was not at the party." No. I have the invitation to the jamboree right here. See, from Cody Bertyler." Barkin pulled out a card from his principal pack. "Dear Josh Barkin, this is your good friend Cody Bertyler, inviting you to join me in my annual Nature Scout Outdoor Jamboree. a campout on the night of March 31st. For 100 years, this event has been held on the last day before April, which unfortunately falls on a school night this year. That's an opportunity to renew our virtue and respect each spring. I hope you can make it. I promise we'll get plenty of sleep, and my dad will get you to school on time. Respectfully, Cody Burr Tyler. Niles took a look. Red ink. He drew in a slow, tragic breath and shook his head. I hate to say it, but this could be a forgery, Principal Barkin. Josh was the only student to fill out my mid-year wellness survey in red. For once, Barkin didn't go purple. He went pale. Excuse me, boys. I have to make a phone call. Earlier that week, Josh Barkin had received an invitation from Cody Burr Tyler, but it hadn't been to a jamboree, and it hadn't been written in red ink. It was written with a blue Bic Velocity 1.6 millimeter ballpoint pen, and mailed by Miles Murphy on March 23rd. Here is what it said. Dear Josh Barkin, what's going on, dude? Guess what? Congratulations, because you have been invited to join Cody Burr Tyler's secret pranking club. Hold your horses, man. You're not in yet. If you want to be in this club, then guess what? You'll have to prove yourself by spending the entire night in my secret HQ on a school night. Spend the night in my treehouse on March 31st. At the dawn of April 1st, carve your initials on the wall, then you are in. Warning, we will be watching. If you show up at dawn and pretend you've been there all night, we will see you. If you try to write your initials before dawn, we will see you, and then you will be out forever. How are you going to pull this off? That's your problem. Make something up. Tell your folks you're hanging out at my Nature Scout Jamboree, or, wait, why am I giving you ideas? You think of something. Destroy this message as soon as you read it. Eat it, or something. Or else. Cody. It took a brief principal-to-principal call for Barkin to verify that Miles and Niles were right. Nobody named Cody Burr Tyler was enrolled at St. Perpetua. But at home, Josh Barkin swore Cody was real. Okay, so I wasn't at his jamboree, but I couldn't have moved Uncle Bob's cows. I was spending the night at Cody Burr Tyler's secret HQ. I even carved my initials on the wall with the date. I'll show you. And so Principal Barkin followed Josh into the forest. But while the perfect treehouse takes hammers, saws, and 6 weeks to build, it only takes a sledgehammer, a delicious breakfast, and a couple of hours to dismantle completely. But Josh Barkin stood at the base of a sycamore, looking up at branches that held only the beginnings of buds that would soon bloom bright red. I want you to walk out of this forest, back to our house, and up to your room, said Principal Barkin. You are grounded. And although it pains me to say it, you are officially on probation at Yawny Valley Science and Letters Academy. But you can't put me on probation. That would mean, yes, that would mean you are ineligible for student council. When we reschedule school election, Holly Rash will be running unopposed. Josh turned his back and muttered, Nimbus. But Principal Barkin wasn't finished. And, Josh, he said, I certainly can put you on probation. I can do anything. I am a principal. Principal Barkin straightened his red tie. He'd had a pretty bad day, but that was a pretty good power speech. Chapter 38. The best way to get cows down a short flight of stairs is to build a ramp by covering the steps with a few sheets of thick plywood. It's also the best way to get a car up a flight of stairs. By the time Bob Barkin showed up in his truck and built just such a ramp, Miles Murphy was already asleep. It was the earliest Miles had ever gone to bed, including sick days. After Miles left school for the second time that day, he'd gone straight home and found his wagon waiting on the front porch. There was a present inside, wrapped in green with a yellow ribbon. He opened it up in his room. In a shoebox, wrapped in tissue paper, was a sash that said, School Helper Helper. He tried it on. Maybe it was just the exhaustion, but he liked how it looked. Miles Murphy brushed his teeth and got into bed. He put his pranking journal underneath his pillow. The sun streamed through his window, but he didn't pull the shade. Miles Murphy was a cowboy, a cattle rustler, a pranking legend. And nobody knew it, except himself, and Niles Sparks. And that was good, and his bed was warm, and it wasn't long before Miles was sleeping the best sleep he'd slept since he moved to Yawny Valley. Somewhere in the distance, a cow moved.